Welcome to another episode of the Impossible Life Podcast. I'm your co-host, Nick Surface, and I'm sitting across from a man whose average body temperature is 113 degrees Fahrenheit. That's right, friends, the former Navy SEAL, Garrett Unkelbach, a man who knows that there's no such thing as burnout if you're the one doing all the burning.
This is true.
Yeah, you do run hot. I was in this intro, I did a little bit of research on the highest body temperature animals, and I realized that hummingbirds average 104 degrees Fahrenheit, and they come in at the highest for animals. So you're above a hummingbird. Well done,
I'm
you.
not a hummingbird, but I am of a northern genetic strain for sure.
That they have yet to discover. Scientists think it's somewhere in the northern Baltic region. Anyways, today's episode is a short cast, as we do. It's our tools and tactics episodes. It's how to avoid burnout, and burnout is like unbelievably common these days. G, which is I know you don't really believe in burnout, which is why I'm interested to dive into this one with you.
Yep, I'll hold my tongue just here for a second. Let you finish.
Just to let everybody know where we're going. Well, let me give you a little quick bit of background just so we're all on the same page. Then we're going to dive straight in because you guys know on these tools and tactics episodes, we just get straight in. Lots of people experience this. Here's the thing that I found interesting. Burnout was not even ever written about until 1974, which is like really...
Exactly.
Okay. This just feeds your like what you have to say about it. But like, so there's an American psychologist named Herbert Freudenberger who wrote about it in a paper, and he actually was describing his own mental state from like being exposed to prolonged stress in the workplace, along with other people, which is wild because if you think about how we get like 2 days off in America, even in other cultures, like I was in Costa Rica recently, they only get 1 day off, and they typically work at 6-8 hour days. But like regardless of where you're at, you get like a pretty scheduled planned day off. And in the past, it's like, oh, you're a farmer, you want to take a day off? Okay, good luck with that. Like you better get wealthy first before you can afford to do that. So people grew up working much longer hours than they do now, but they didn't have burnout. So that's a little background note, just so we can define terms, because we like to do that here on The Impossible Life. This is according to the World Health Organization, who, whatever you want to say about them, we're going to go ahead and just use their definition because it was the one that came up. Just so we all agree on this, burnout is a state of emotional, physical, and mental exhaustion caused by prolonged stress or frustration, which we could talk about frustration. It often results from chronic workplace stress that hasn't been successfully managed, leading to feelings of exhaustion, mental distance from work, and a sense of reduced professional efficacy. Burnout is not a medical condition, but is recognized as an occupational phenomenon by the World Health Organization. And it might phenomenate you, Garrett, to hear that many people are dealing with burnout, which what they're basically saying here is that it's a mental thing, which is what we're going to get into, right? So just so you know, if this is not a physical condition, funny story on this podcast once, and I caught it, and you and I have never talked about it until right now when we're recording live, G. I talked about my 100-miler, how I had given everything I had physically, and we never talked about it afterwards or before, but you stepped in and you're like, you still had things in the tank physically, but you just thought you didn't mentally. And I remember when you said that, I was like, huh. It's kind of hard for me to tell you, hey, how do you know? Because you've been through some things. So I just had to sit there and go like, I guess Garrett was right. I kind of tapped out on that one mentally, but physically, clearly I had more in the tank. So anyways.
Well, and that's really, that's kind of the core of what burnout is about, right? It's a state of emotional, physical, mental exhaustion caused by prolonged stress or frustration. And I think the prolonged part is the part that people struggle with. Right. Burnout hasn't been written about until recently. Burnout's also not in the Bible. What is in the Bible? Weariness is in the Bible. Despair is in the Bible. There's some difficult things in the Bible. Burnout's not in there. And I put burnout in a different category than weariness or despair. I think we live in a world today where people feel like if you've never been outside of America, and if you've only lived in the time that we live in America, life is pretty easy. And you can think that it should continue to be that easy. And this is kind of like what we've talked about. You and I have been talking about this some recently in some other groups and also on the podcast. Really the difference between like work and labor and how you feel about your connection to the work that you're doing. God designed us for work. And so like burnout and that do not go hand in hand, right? God designed us for work. And if you're doing the work that God designed you to do, and he also said that it would be hard, but he didn't say that you'd get burnt out from it. This is what he created us to do, right? And when you're walking in your purpose, when you're doing the things that God created you to do, you're not going to have burnout. Burnout, it also says, is hey, it's like a buildup of stress. Um, if you have the right mindset, you know that stress is good for you. I've been through plenty of things in the last few years of my life that I can say, like, man, I'm really just burnt out on like this whole building a business thing. I'm really burnt out on
Right.
this whole, pouring into other men and advancing the kingdom thing. But what I know is that a lot of the stress that I've walked through, it's really just made me better. And there's been some things in my past in like the last 3 to 5 years where I could have said, like, God, this stinks. Like, why do I have to deal with this? And when I look back at those things, I'm like, man, I don't know if I'd be the same person that I am today without those things.
Yeah, very good.
And so a lot of burnout too is really about your connection to the work that you do. The same way that we talked about the heart a lot lately, and that God cares more about why we do what we do than what it
Yeah.
is that we do specifically. And I would say that how you're responding to your life has a lot more to do with why you feel like you do what you do versus what you do. And if I was going to prescribe burnout to someone, I would give them laborious, arduous tasks without meaning and purpose, and push them very hard. That would be
Mm,
100%. I know you. I could get you to feel burnout, be where you're saying like, man, this sucks, and why am I having to do it?
right. Yeah, very
No,
good.
no
So
one
just
would feel burnout if they like if I told you you have to work 18 hours a day for 10 years or you'll never see your family again. On year 5, you're not gonna be like, man, I'm really just kind of feeling burnout on this whole like, save
right.
my family journey. I
Yeah.
don't know if I'm into this anymore. No, because you're deeply connected to it.
Right.
And you'd see your children every night and be like, I'm gonna get you out of there, right? I'm gonna save
Right.
you. You wouldn't feel burnout. And
Very good.
so, anyways, burnout is very much about the meaning and connection that you have to the work that you do.
Right. And most people would think that the answer to burnout is to just do nothing and have vacation. But the problem with that is you got to come back. Right. So like that's
That is
basically taking a pill. You're putting a band-aid on it. You're not actually solving the problem.
for sure, and that is what most people like. Oh man, I'm feeling burnout at work. I need to take 2 weeks off, right?
Yeah.
And we'll undo some of that as well today. But let's talk about a
Let's
few
get into
things.
it, G. Number one. So we basically got three things here to make sure that you never burn out. This is like endurance, keep your hand to the plow, finish the race strong. And number one is alignment. Alignment with what, G?
So alignment is about getting the things in your life all headed in the same direction. We talk
Right.
about alignment on mindset mastery. Jump in there with us. You can learn more about alignment. But alignment, the first thing that we teach is based on a triangle. Think about a man says, "I'm going to be my best for God." A woman says, "I'm going to be my best for God," and we'll meet at the top. And that's the context of a marriage. But you can have alignment in everything you're doing in your life. And what's going to keep you from feeling burnout is when you have alignment on the things that you're doing. Where you're going to feel a ton of burnout is where the opposite of alignment is like where a man says he feels like he's being pulled in all these different
Right.
directions. It's the opposite of alignment. The closer I get to my job, the more it pulls me away from my family. I try to serve God, it takes me away from my hobbies. That's the opposite of alignment. If you can
Right.
get everything in your life going in the same direction, that's going to be a great source of energy to you. You feel like all the balls are moving forward together in your life. That's going to be a great source of energy for you. It's a connection to the work instead of feeling like you're literally what is the term that people use for corporate America all the time? The rat race. Rat race
Right.
is where you get burnout.
Yeah, for sure. Now, what a lot of people, so people might be like, oh, okay, cool, like get everything going the same direction. Thanks. What that practically looks like is that you have really clear priorities and you understand how everything you do fits in with those priorities. I can speak best to my own life, but also I know your life pretty well as well, G. I do a lot of things. I have 3 businesses. I have 3 kids. I am one of the leaders in our Mighty Men men's ministry. I also am the servant leader director of our kids ministry right now. Also, we're recording this right before Easter, and I'm in the Easter play as Jesus. It's a very busy time in my life right now. I am in the green on my whoop. I feel very energized. I don't come home and complain to my wife about all the stuff that I had to do today ever. And the reason is because every single thing is something that I feel like is moving my life forward in the same direction, which is to do what? To advance the kingdom of God. So like I'm not living out of line with my priorities. It's not like I'm like, oh, I haven't dated my wife in 6 months and I never see my kids. None of that is true because everything is ordered and prioritized and my life is in order. And so that's what you're talking about when you say alignment is like you have it's God first. Really, you're never going to experience flow and order if you don't have God in his rightful
Yeah.
place. So it's God first. And then understanding how he orders your life after that will give you an incredible amount of energy and capacity.
And a lot of people experience flow as like you can get into a flow on writing.
Yeah.
There's like micro flow for your day, and
Right.
that's getting your brain patterns, your energy levels, getting all those things moving in the same direction in harmony together. A lot of people experience that type of flow, but the flow that you and I are talking about is really, it's like a flow of your life, not a flow of your
Yeah.
day and your productivity. There's a flow of your life where it's all moving well together, and that comes from alignment. And alignment is when you get all the little things serving one big thing.
Yeah, I love that. We actually did that with our fast track people for the New Year's Day. We developed a framework for this that we will release for the wider audience at some point because I have to say I've used it with a lot of my coaching clients and just friends, and it's that framework is phenomenal for helping people get their life in order so that they really do develop more of a vision and get that flow and that alignment. Okay, so number one is alignment. Everything moving in the same place towards the same direction in order. Number two, G is what?
Tension. Okay.
Ooh,
Let's
well, that doesn't
talk
sound
about
right. Hang on.
yeah,
Tension?
let's talk about what tension is. And some of this is like our own terminology and phraseology here. But I look at there's a difference between tension and pressure. Pressure is where you feel like the weight is falling on you. You feel like it's such a burden, all the weight that you have to carry. It's like, man, I can't keep doing this any longer. Like we've talked about our definition of strength, right? Strength isn't what you can pick up. Strength is what you
Right.
never have to put down. Having that mindset around strength is a little bit of a defense against the pressure feeling like, hey, you know what? I've just moved into the phase of being a business owner now. So here's some weight that I'm just going to have to get used to carrying. But pressure
Mhm.
is more than just that. Pressure can feel like, yeah, I'm imploding from all the weight. Uh, Whereas tension is more about, instead of the weight being on you, tension is the weight is in front of you. And I've really
Mm.
described tension in the past as when you have purpose, which is a piece of alignment. It's a piece of tension as well. When you have the right purpose, you feel like there's something pulling you forward. If
Right.
you've ever done like sprinting drills, where someone puts an elastic band to your chest and pulls on you, you still have to run, but you feel like there's something is pulling you forward. And that's what tension is. Tension is in where pressure is like, man, I have all these things that I have to do. Pressure is more of a must feeling like, man, the mission requires this of me. It's a sense of duty instead of obligation, right?
Mhm.
Pressure is obligation, tension is duty. Tension sees the greatness of your growth, tension sees the greatness of developing in your task. We've talked about this before, how many people in their lives, they're either running from pain or running towards pleasure.
Right.
And both of those are journeys that are about you. And on any self-purposed journey, you're going to run into a lot of pressure where things get really hard. And at that point, you'll begin to say, you know what? All this pain that I'm feeling, all this pressure that I'm feeling, it's not worth it anymore. The pleasure that I thought I was after, it's not worth all of this pressure that I'm going through. Versus tension, you can only get tension when you're living a life like we've talked about before, where I talk about my friend Charlie, who my friend
Mhm.
Charlie Keating died May 3rd, 2016. Died with a smile on his face, and the smile was not because his family was going to receive a $400,000 death benefit. The smile was because he died for something that he knew was significant, that he knew was worth giving a life to. And for
Mm.
most of us, we're not going to give our life in a moment. For most of us, we're going to give our life over a lifetime. But what would be senseless is if you give your life over a lifetime to something that you would not be willing to give your life in a moment to. Only those things that if I'd be willing to give my life in a moment to this, I'm willing to give my life over a lifetime to this. And
Right.
when you commit to something like that, it's like, man, I'd be willing to give my life to this. When that energy's on you, when that tension is on you, it's like, man, I
Mhm.
have to run faster. I know I can grow and this hurts, but it's good for me. And even if it wasn't good for me, I want to do this because it's so meaningful, right? Just like
Yeah.
my friend Charlie said, I would give my life for this. All the people who walked in the role that I once did in the SEAL teams and many other roles in the armed services, they say, I'm willing to give my life for this. And when you have a worthy cause, you can go so much further than you could go if the cause is about you.
Yeah, that's so good, G. And I hope I know that for a lot of people, Garrett's basically saying that the infinite fuel here is purpose, and whereas most people are using either pain or pleasure as their fuel, and that may sound like, oh, well, great, now I got to connect to my purpose, and then you have 20 other questions. We've covered purpose, but let me just give a very quick overview for anybody that's out there. Understand that God's grand design is to have a people in the earth, and you are part of that design. None of your purpose will ever be apart from the purposes of God. right? So if you're going to find purpose, it's going to be because you're playing part in the purpose that he already has. So you're going, okay, great. Yeah, I agree with that. I'm a follower of God. I still don't know what my purpose is. You see purpose looking back. The best thing that you could do is to understand that you have to look at what you have in your hand, the relationships you have, the talents, the money, whatever, every single thing, your time, your actual body, your physical body, all the things that you have, and to be faithful and honor God in those things. Like, trust in the Lord with all your heart, lean not on your own understanding, in all your ways acknowledge him, and he'll direct your paths, is like the recipe for living purposefully. What does that mean? Oh, that means you're not going to understand, right? Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding means you're not going to have certainty. You're not going to have it laid out like, and here's where you're going to go, and then you're going to be the chosen one. None of that. It's going to be putting everything that you want on the altar before God and surrendering it to him and saying, you know what, Lord, here's what I've got right now. So I'm going to be faithful in doing this. Faithful how? I'm going to do it the way you said. I'm going to glorify you with what? My relationships, my body, my money, my time, how I treat other people, how the time I spend with you, every single thing. And when you do that, it's amazing how things just doors start opening up. And it's like, wow, this happened, this happened, this happened. And one day you pause and you look back and you're like, oh, God was working the whole time. That's how purpose works. So if you're sat there and you're going, well, I would love to tie myself to that fuel, understand that what you're doing matters today. And the more that you mature, the more you know God, the more your vision will mature as well. And you'll start tying the importance of what you do every single day with this great vision that God's put in your heart for further down the line. And you'll have such a sense of urgency in what you do. So we could go, I mean, purpose is one of our topics we could
The,
go on and
the
on about,
easy
but
the easy shift in this for people, because yes, getting into your purpose it's like, man, that's a lot. We just opened
right,
Pandora's box here, right? But if
right.
you want to shift in the right direction on this, all you have to do is start to give intention towards something that's bigger than you, right? You've got to
Yes,
get your life focused on something that's not about you. But it's not. You can't just say it. You can't just like. It's not. I love the scene in The Office where he's like, "I declare bankruptcy," right? It doesn't.
yeah.
It doesn't work.
Michael, you can't just declare it. Yeah,
You can't just like declare purpose. Like, just because you tell everyone in your office doesn't mean that it works that way. It is a heart issue. You cannot fool God in this, and you
right,
cannot fool principles in this.
right.
You've got to make some internal changes where, man, I'm like, maybe I don't even know what my purpose is, but I know, here's what you can know: your purpose isn't about you. And so I
Right.
need to persist in the season that I'm in. I need to persist in my own growth and development, not for my own gain, but so that I could serve others better. And that is a
Yeah.
shift. That's a shift that you could make today. And that's a shift that requires no knowledge, no specific knowledge of what your purpose is.
So I hope you guys realize burnout is in your head, like we said. Okay, that according to the definition. So the first two things we've given you are very much about your thinking and the order of your life, as far as putting a framework and an understanding. So these are mental. The third one is rest, right? And that may be like, oh, well, that's obvious, but we're going to make a few points here. This one is very much physical, but it's also mental, because this is intentional and scheduled rest. I always say, gee, it's amazing to me that the Ten Commandments make a lot of sense, right? Like, it's how most society's law is built on the Ten Commandments. Okay, so they ignore the one about God if they're not a godly society, but God gives these 10 commandments. Put me first. Okay, we got that one. Respect my name. Yep. Respect your mom and dad. Okay, that's a good one. Don't murder people. Gotcha, God. Don't steal. Okay. Don't hook up with your neighbor's wife. That's a good one. Don't even go after your neighbor's stuff. Oh yeah, that's a good one as well. Also, you're going to rest one day out of every seven.
What was
I'm
that?
sorry. What was that last part? I was with you up until that point, right? It seems so out of uh, character with everything else that God said, no, you have to rest. Now, there's a lot we can go into about how when you're resting, you're actually showing and trusting God that He's going to continue to bring provision. But Jesus, when He came along later, said the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. That is a really important thing to realize. I think, especially in our culture today, it's really easy for people to just get caught up in being busy, 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 busy. And honestly, I think a lot of it is because they don't have the number one that we mentioned on here right. If you have alignment and you understand the priorities of your life, you're not just going to say yes to every single thing that comes along. Whereas I think a lot of times people say yes to things because they just sound great, or it's like, oh, that'll be fun, or insert whatever mechanism that you're using to make your decisions, and you're out of alignment. And so, like, when you understand alignment, then I think intentional rest becomes a lot more important to you, and you're okay with saying no to things. But like, you have to look ahead. You have to plan it. We've had recently actually somebody ask about, does this have to be like the Sabbath, like how the Jews did it, which technically started on what would be our Friday night and would go till their Saturday night? No, it's the principle of the thing. Like, you need to look at your schedule and say, okay, I'm setting this intentional time aside to rest. For me, this, honestly, what this looks like is downtime with my family. this may not sound very holy, but like playing video games is actually a very restful activity for me as far as recharging my battery. So when I schedule my rest, that to me that's part I usually do it on a Sunday. I go to church, worship God, honor God with my tithe, and spend time with my family. That's what it looks like for me.
The reason that people won't rest, okay, let's talk about this for a second. The reason some people wouldn't rest is because they're thinking, well, I just have to get this stuff done. And
Hmm.
if I get this stuff done, then I would have X in my life. I would have whatever
Right.
feeling, I would have whatever status, I would have whatever resources, and then that would give me rest.
Right.
And that's
Very good.
fundamentally the problem. Matthew chapter 11, verse 28, Jesus says, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." Right? Now, rest doesn't come from your circumstances, rest comes from God. Take my
Mm,
yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. And so, really, the antidote to burnout is it's about God, it's about your purpose, it's about where your rest comes from. Rest
mm,
doesn't come from your situation or your circumstances, rest comes from God. But also, make no mistake, he says, my yoke is easy, my burden is light, but it's still a yoke and it's still a burden. The purpose that God has for your life, it's going to be hard, but it won't feel the same way the work would if you weren't in your purpose. So when we're following God's plan for our life, when we're looking to Him for our rest, when we're following in the plan that God has for our life, you're not going to feel burnout. You're going to feel
mm.
tension on your life. You're going to feel this bungee cord pulling you into your destiny.